Hello everybody, it's Miss Boholst and I'm here today to share your final story in your Module 10, Tell a Tale. So we've been focusing on listening and reading stories from other cultures. And mostly they are folk tales. So our story today is a folk tale. And folk tales are traditional stories that have been passed down orally from one generation to another. Orally means by mouth, so it just because you couldn't read or write didn't mean you weren't able to tell a story. People in the past oftentimes had to pass a story along just by telling it rather than recording it down on pencil and paper. So authors of a folktale will tell a story through a plot. So there's a problem and a solution, beginning, middle, and end. There is usually some kind of moral or lesson that we've learned from the story and that the characters have learned. And often there are magical creatures or animals that are humanistic, that talk like humans and behave like humans. You're going to see that in this story. And the folk tales are going to include beliefs and ideas of a culture. So our story today is from Latin America. I'm not sure of the exact country, but the story's title, Compay Mono and Comay Jicotea, has some Spanish meaning behind it. Our author, Joe Hayes, he grew up in a town in Arizona where he spoke English and Spanish, and he loves to tell stories in two different languages. So they call him a bilingual storyteller. And most of his stories are tales of Hispanic culture and take place in the American Southwest. So let's get our story started here. Compay Mono and Comay Jicotea, retold by Joe Hayes. This means that it's not a story he came up with on his own. Retold means told again. So he heard this folk tale. It's been around for a very long time, and he told it and had it illustrated into a book for kids. Compay and Comay are short for compadre and comadre. If a man is godfather to your child, he is your compadre. A woman who is godmother to your child is your comadre. Since people usually choose good friends to be their child's godparent, compadre and comadre often just mean good friend. Compay Mono the monkey and Comay Jicotea the turtle were neighbors, and they seemed to be the very best of friends. Compay Mono was a hard worker. He had a fine little farm where he raised all sorts of good food. In the east, he planted pumpkins, and in the west, cassava. In the north, he raised sweet potatoes. Here are sweet potatoes here. And in the south, yams, or actually these might be yams. Sweet potatoes and yams are very similar to each other. Each day, Compay Mono visited every corner of his farm to pull up the weeds and make sure no harm had come to his crops. He was looking forward to a very good harvest. So one of the things I wanted to talk about in this text is character traits and evidence. In third grade, we want to get very specific about character traits. We don't want to just label a character as good or bad or nice or mean or something kind of general like that. We want to use very specific traits to describe the character's personality. And the author will usually show that through words and behavior. So Compay Mono is described as a hard worker, and the evidence that the author provides is that he goes to every corner of his farm every day to pull weeds. That's some pretty strong evidence that you're a hard worker. If you've ever pulled weeds, you'll know that's not an easy task to do. But just before the pumpkins were ready to be picked, Compay Mono noticed that someone had entered his field at night and stolen some. At least 10 of them were missing. Compay Mono was worried, and later that day he talked to his neighbor, Comay Jicotea, about the theft. And the theft is the act of taking something that doesn't belong to you. Our highlighted vocabulary words here. You'd better stay up tonight and guard your field, the turtle told him. Stand there on that little hill at the eastern end of your farm, she advised. From there, you can keep watch over your pumpkins and see if anyone enters the field. Compay Mono followed the advice of his comadre. All night, he stood at the eastern end of his little farm, carefully watching over the pumpkin patch to make sure no one entered. So there's another piece of evidence that he's a hard worker. He stayed up all night to watch the farm. But the next morning, when Compay Mono inspected, or looked at it carefully, the whole farm, he discovered that while he was guarding the pumpkins in the east, someone had entered the western end and stolen his yucca. Compay Mono told Comay Jicotea what had happened. You must have fallen asleep, his comadre told him. Tonight, let me guard your farm. The thief will probably enter the southern field this time. I'll stand guard there so that no one can steal your namas. Compay Mono agreed, and at that night, while Comay Jicotea guarded the yams in the southern field, someone stole the boniatos in the northern field. The next day, Compay Mono told the turtle what had happened. Of course, she was very surprised and sympathetic. How could that be? She said, shaking her head. I never closed my eyes all night long. This must be a very clever thief. So if you feel sympathetic to someone, it means that you're feeling a sense of understanding and kindness towards their situation. Compay Mono was beginning to get suspicious. He's starting to think something might be wrong. And at this point in the story, you might have gotten suspicious too. It was very convenient that the thief was on the other side of the field of whoever was watching guard or keeping guard. He knew that Comay Jicotea had a reputation for being tricky, but monkeys can be tricky too. And Compay Mono thought of a way to find out what was going on. Yes, the monkey said to his comadre. There must be a very clever and dangerous thief in these parts. The next thing you know, they'll come into my house and steal my money. I know what I'd better do. I'm going to hide all my money up in the loft. No one would ever think of looking for it up there. And you can see he's keeping out a watchful eye here. It says that night, Compay Mono lay awake in bed listening. Late in the night, he heard someone tugging at the door. Slowly it opened, and then in came the humped-back form of Comay Jicotea. So here she is, creeping in his bedroom at night, looking to steal his money. Now, when he said he hid the money in the loft, a loft is usually an area of the home that's above the rest of the house. It's sort of like a little attic type space, or it's just a second level sometimes. Compay Mono, let's see, I think I lost my place. She headed straight toward the loft and began climbing the ladder. Compay Mono jumped out of bed and grabbed her. You're the thief, he shouted. You're the one who stole my pumpkins and my yams and my yucca, and you thought you'd steal all my money too. I ought to throw you into the fire. Comay Jicotea looked very ashamed. "You're right," she said. "I deserve to be punished. But it won't help to throw me onto the fire. My shell won't burn, and I'll never learn a lesson from that. You should throw me into the river. I'm terrified of the cold water, but I know it's just what I deserve." So this is where I would pause as a reader and think, can you really trust what she says? She hasn't shown any character traits before of being trustworthy. She has lied. She has stolen. She was sneaking into his house at night. So I'm thinking that Compay Mono probably at this point doesn't have any evidence that she's trustworthy. But let's see what happens. As everyone knows, monkeys are afraid of water. And so what that crafty Jicotea said made sense to Compay Mono. He picked up the turtle and ran to the river with her. He threw her as far out into the water as he could. And of course, the tricky little Comay Jicotea swam away laughing to herself. To this day, Comay Jicotea sometimes comes out to sun herself on the bank of the river. But she spends most of her time in the water. She knows Compay Mono still wants to catch her and punish her. But she knows that if she just jumps into the river, the monkey will never dive in after her. And here it says that someone who's crafty will use a clever or tricky way to get what they want. So there's two meanings to crafty. There's a crafty person can be somebody who's very good at arts and crafts, but it could also mean, has a totally different meaning, that they trick other people to get what they want. So in this story, we have a lot of evidence that Compay Mono is a hardworking monkey, but he's not necessarily a clever monkey. He's easily tricked. And when it comes to Comay Jicotea, we don't want to just say that she's a bad turtle. That's too general of a word. We need to be very specific when we describe character traits in literature. So instead of just saying she's the bad guy or she's the bad character, we would say that she's crafty or dishonest, untrustworthy, sneaky. So more specific vocabulary. If you have been going out on any walks around a pond or, marshes, swamps, like small bodies of water, sometimes in the middle of the day, you'll see turtles sitting up on rocks. They like to sit out on the sun, and then they go back in the water to swim, find water, find food, and drink water. So in a way, this folktale also kind of hints that the reason why the turtle lives in the water is because it's afraid of the monkey getting revenge, which we know is not true, but in folktales, there's usually a little bit of a hint of magical things or things that haven't really happened in real life. So I hope you enjoyed this story, and as always, take care in answering your questions about the story, writing in complete sentences, and using that text evidence. And I will say goodbye for now.